The other day I was driving around thinking, what would have happened if Walt Disney never brought Disney World to Orlando? We all know the impacts are vast, and yet what does Orlando look like without Disney World? I actually have some insights and studies that go right into this. And today I'm going to break this down, kind of take you through the past, the present, and the future of Orlando with and without Disney World. Before we can decide the economic impact, we have to go back to the last time Orlando existed without Disney, which was in the 1960s, and even before that, the 1950s, when the Martin Company came here from Baltimore. They bought up 12 square miles of the city to then build a missile defense program, and they had over 2,700 people that they relocated here, and they started helping us build out the road infrastructure that we know of as today. In 1968, you had UCF get founded, which was originally known as the Florida Technological University. It had less than 2,000 students and 90 instructors with like 150 different staff members, and so that obviously was to support the Space Coast and everything that was going on over there. Would it exist in its current iteration with over 60,000 kids there with the hospitality school and all this other kind of stuff that they have going on? Probably not. I also look at like Baldwin Park, which was originally an Army base in the 40s and then turned into a Navy base in the 60s. That had thousands of people that used to live there. And so you think about the 60s, like before Disney, it was naval base, missile defense, citrus. I'm sure other industries would have come along, but citrus is left because of the greening and so many other things. And so if that industry pulled back, what other things would have actually came in to replace it? Now, Lockheed Martin, which used to be the Martin Companies and then Martin Marietta, that still exists and still does very well and employs quite a few people here. And so you think about what our town would actually be. You'd still probably have the space stuff going on. You'd have the schools. You'd have some of the other agricultural pieces going on, but very, very different than what it looks like today. So now that we know what Orlando looked like before Walt Disney came, let's kind of catch you up on how all of this came about. In the 1950s, Walt Disney bought roughly 160 acres in Anaheim, eventually turned that into like 300 acres, and realized very quickly that he didn't have all of the land he wanted to be able to implement his vision. And so he comes here to Orlando and decides that this is a great place to get his vision to come to life. And so he starts buying up land left and right in shell corporations, and some of these are my absolute favorite names. They've got Compass East Corporation, Latin America Development Management Company, I4, spelled AYEFOUR, a kind of a play on our I4 going on here. You've got MT Lots and all of these different shell corporations buying up little pieces of property so that nobody knew what was going on here in Central Florida. Eventually, he amasses 27,000 acres to build his dream on. And I think this is like a really cool story regarding like, hey, the power of Disney at the time in the 60s when you didn't have social media, you didn't have YouTube, and yet he knew that if people knew what was going on here, that he would have to spend an absolute fortune. The story goes that his first acre of property that he purchased here in Central Florida was only for $80, and the last acre was roughly $80,000. So you could see that as people got to know what was coming, the excitement was growing of what was going to be built here. It's a really cool founding story for something so many of us hold so dear. So between 1964 and 1965, Walt amasses all of this property, and November 15th of 1965, he announces that Walt Disney World would be coming to Central Florida.
We have many things in mind that could make this unique and different than Disneyland.
In 1971, Walt Disney World eventually opens, and 2 years later, you have SeaWorld come on the scene. In 1983, we had the Convention Center open, and in 1990, Universal comes on the scene. And between all of those different players, we become the theme park capital of the world and spur on so many other things coming to Central Florida. So let's go into maybe economic impact of all of that going on next. Now, it's easy to quantify that it's a big number, but let's get a little bit more granular. In 2023, Walt Disney World companies actually had a study done by Oxford Economics that went through the overall impact that they have here in Central Florida. According to this study, there's over 263,000 jobs that are either direct or indirect because of Walt Disney World being here. There's over 82,000 direct jobs in Disney's workforce across the states, and over $12 billion of labor income that's generated because of that. You've got over 2,500 small businesses that are supported by supplying Walt Disney World, and over $1.1 billion of state and local taxes to Orange and Osceola counties here in the state of Florida. That doesn't include all of the other sort of taxes that come in from Airbnbs and hotel tax that then get redistributed to things like redoing the Camping World Stadium and redoing the Heritage Park and some different things down in Osceola because of the tourist funds that also get spurred on here. I think all of us would agree that if Disney wasn't here, that Universal wouldn't be here either. And so you look at the impact with jobs and investment because of Epic Universe, even over the past couple years, that was like $2 billion or so. And so lots of economic impact because of the tourism industry. You think about like in 2024, there were 75 million visitors that came through Orlando. And how many of those people would have actually come here without the theme parks? Now, you look at a city just to our south, like Lakeland, they had roughly 6 million visitors come through. Many of those probably came through MCO, through Orlando, and made it down there. But areas like Polk County and the Villages and all these other areas that we're about to get into in just a minute wouldn't thrive nearly as much if Walt Disney World hadn't settled down here in Orlando. You know, there's a ton of people that move to Central Florida for the theme parks. They want to be at near Universal and Disney. And if that's you, my team and I want to be your real estate resource of choice when the time comes. If you're looking to sell or buy a house, we've got over 1,650 5-star reviews over on Google. Check us out there. And then when you're ready, visit theorlandoreal.com/YouTube to get started. So let's talk about the butterfly effect of residential real estate in Central Florida because of Walt Disney World and Universal and theme parks, and kind of becoming that capital that so many people want to visit and live in. Just starting close to Disney, you've got Golden Oak, right? You've got 330-ish homes, townhomes, and condos that are in that area. And it's the most expensive real estate in all of Central Florida. And it wouldn't be unless it was inside the gates of Walt Disney World. Right next door, you've got the town of Celebration. It's got over 4,500 rooftops and roughly 10,000 plus residents. That would not be here if it wasn't for Walt Disney World. And then the 6,000 Airbnbs that are in Davenport, Kissimmee, and some of those other surrounding areas definitely wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Walt Disney World. And then you start kind of branching out from there. Some of these areas would still exist. Like a Winter Haven would still probably be similar to what it is today. But what about over in the Villages? The Villages was originally founded in the 70s as Orange Blossom Gardens. It was a mobile home park. And then in the 80s and 90s, the Morse family took it over and expanded it into what it is today. But would that exist in its current iteration if it wasn't for Walt Disney World being an hour away? I think it probably would be something. I think it would still be a great retirement capital. People that want to be inland in Florida and not have to worry about the hurricanes as much, retire to an area that's beautiful with low income tax. But would that exist in its iteration currently without Disney? The other one that kind of floors me is this idea of Lake Nona. Lake Nona is at 17 square miles of the city of Orlando, right next to the airport. It includes the golf club and the homes that are there, as well as a lot of other neighborhoods with jobs and hospitals and all this other kind of stuff. That was originally founded because the owner of Tavistock flew here to talk to Disney about potentially maybe doing business together or just seeing what that business model was. While he was here, the story goes, he looked out in his plane and noticed that there was all of this land that was close by. He bought the golf club and then expanded his empire into this entire area. And so all of that definitely wouldn't exist if it wasn't for Disney and him having that open mind to come visit here because of everything that was going on. Areas like Winter Park, which were established in the late 1800s for a getaway for Northeasterners to come down and enjoy the weather, that probably would still continue to be maybe not what it is today, but it would be a town that would be maybe a little bit different and still a higher end real estate area even without Disney. Let me know what you think. Which area has had the biggest impact because Disney was here? So where do we go from here as a region? I think that yes, we have the theme park capital of the world in our backyard, and it's incredible between Disney and Universal and all of the other things that we have going on here. But Orlando is emerging into so many other things, and it actually goes back to our history of the Lockheed Martin world, where you've got defense contractors mixed with space technology, mixed with other technology companies that are emerging, and our healthcare scene, and all of these other things that are getting redeveloped in here. I have privy to a lot of different development and redevelopment going on, and it's exciting to me to see about what Orlando is and has been, but really more so who we're going to become in the future. I don't know about you guys, but I am so glad that Walt brought Disney to Orlando. It's been a great foundation of who we are over the past 50 years, and I know that we can become so much more. And we're putting out videos every single week following the path around real estate development and cool things happening in Orlando. So hit the subscribe button before you leave, and we'll see you on the next video.